We also have a membership drive per se going on, and we're trying to get 60 new members this year. There are membership forms on the tables. There are also surveys so that we can find out where you heard about this program, so that we can get new speakers and things like that. Also, one other thing is next week we did have a change in our lineup. We will be having Mary Dexter giving a talk, and it's going to be entitled "I Break for Old Graveyards." So that should be a really good one. We're sad that Richard Palmer can't make it, but Mary stepped up at the last minute for us. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Bonnie and Debbie from the hospital, and they're going to be talking about the hospital the community built. Thank you.
Thank you for having us today. So Deb, we'll just dive in.
Yeah.
We're going to keep this pretty casual.
We're very casual about it. You know, there's a lot of dates things here. If you have any questions along the way, let us know. First of all, I do want to say thank you to the Cortland County Historical Society. You have many of our old photos, and you'll see them in this presentation today. That this was used for the booklet for our 100th anniversary, and Bonnie will talk later about us celebrating 125 years last year. But I wanted to say thank you in advance because you do get credit in here for all of those, so thank you. So this is about the hospital that the community built. It had 4 different names throughout its life. Cortland Hospital, Cortland County Hospital, Cortland Memorial Hospital, and now Cortland Regional Medical Center. It did begin with the Loyal Order of King's Daughters. They formed in 1888, and in 1889, Reverend Robinson from Grace Episcopal Church suggested they might look into starting a hospital. There was an industrial boom, and the normal school, now the college, was growing, and thought that a hospital would be something good to look at to meet everyone's healthcare needs. So over a period of 2 years, they did raise $1,300, and in April of 1891, at 33 Clayton Avenue, the house is still there. I'm sure it maybe looks about the same. Housing, it opened up with 6 beds. It had a matron and a young boy. It had no running water, no electricity, and other food, linens, and furniture was solicited from the community. The cost at that time was $1 to $7 per week. Can't do that today, you know. So then in 1894, a training school was opened for nurses, and it stayed open for the next 42 years, training 320 nurses. There was a nurses' home on site. While today we don't have a nurses' school at the hospital, but we do have clinical rotations for nurses, for physical therapists, for lab techs, for rural medical students that they job shadow our staff around here. So that continues today. Then the hospital did move in 1895 to 84 North Main Street. Some of us that have been here for all our life will remember after the hospital left there, it was known as the Vernoy Sanitarium, and that stayed open until I think it was in the 1951. Again, this increased the bed number from the 6 up to 25. But we weren't there too long. The Hospital Aid Society, that started in 1905. That was the first volunteer organization. And their purpose was to raise money and supply things for the women's ward. In 1908, the Junior Aid Society was an offshoot of this. It was established to raise money and do supplies for maternity and pediatrics. That organization, now as we know it as Hospital Aid, does continue. Their mission is still maternity pediatrics. They've expanded it to incorporate women's health issues also. That's what they raise funds for equipment. And just this past weekend they had their 108th charity ball. Charity ball only missed 1 or 2 years during one of the world wars, is my understanding. So it's an organization that's been around for quite a while. Then there was a need for a larger hospital. So as many of us maybe remember, the Wickwire brothers, Chester Wickwire, donated $70,000 to purchase the Copeland Boynton House, which is where our current location is at 134 Homer Avenue. It was owned at that time by George Wilsey. Does everyone remember Wilsey's department store? You know, I do. So it took a couple of years for it to be modified, and the hospital opened there in 1911. My understanding from the research I've done is that actually they built this hospital like around the existing house. They didn't really tear down the house, they sort of added to it and built around it. So its capacity then went up to 52 beds. The facade, where you see the pillars, the architect took inspiration from the White House. And as you know, you have one of those cornices in the backyard here at the very top there of the columns. One is out here, and we have two at the hospital in the nursing home outdoor courtyard to act as flower pots. That was my understanding at the time. And maybe Bud, you might have been on the trustees at that point. A lot of that was to keep Anna Hilton happy. Because she was very upset.
Attempt to,
That's it. Attempt to, because adding the nursing home was going to change the look of the hospital so much. So, see, I've been around a little too long here. After it opened there, the community did rally around with contributions. In 1917, Mrs. Chester Wickwire funded an x-ray suite. The Cortland Hospital was now known as Cortland County Hospital. In 1922, a new 21-bed maternity wing opened up that was funded with donations from Frederick and Charles Wickwire. And the residents also built the nurses' home in memory of World War I veterans. And then in 1925, Mr. George Brockway of Brockway Motors funded an addition to the nurses' home. Here you see the new x-ray unit and EKG machine that was also purchased at that time.
Don't you want to climb right in there?
Yeah. And then, of course, we have the operating room suite, which looks a lot different than from today. We probably should have done a before and after picture. But it looks, I mean, it was the most modern at that time, but according to today, it would seem very, very Spartan with all of the equipment and instruments that we do have. The Rotary Club civic organizations were also big on helping out the hospital throughout our whole existence here, and this was the iron lung to treat polio from 1941. Not a time I remember those. World War II did create some hardships for the hospital. There was a shortage of nurses, so they looked for some volunteer Red Cross aides and Gray Ladies to help fill in. Almina Snow was the hospital superintendent. Men were not available. They were out and doing other things or within the war. So due to decrease in nurses, they did have to close the women's ward for a while. Other administrators since that time of names that you probably would know were Don Abbott. He was there from 46 to 53. Joe Fowler, as I remember, was there 73 to 74 when I started working there. William Seymour was there from 74 to 85, and then the titles changed from president to CEO. So Bob Lovell was there from 86 to 96. Tom Carmen, who hired me, and I could kill him because then he left to go to Samaritan in 2004. Brian Mateer was there from 2004 to 2013, and Mark Webster joined us in 2014 and is our current CEO. In 1953, the Women's Auxiliary was formed as a volunteer and a fundraising group. This sort of was going to be different than the old Hospital Aid Society. Its membership is open now to both men and women. And they would, to help with, the old hospital aid was mainly soliciting and fundraising, where this would be active volunteerism within the organization, helping with transportation, coffee shop, that's when they opened up the coffee shop as a fundraising, assisting with clerical duties, and now, of course, it's expanded to include helping the residents in the nursing home. Right after this, in 1961, the Candy Stripers started for the young high school students, women at that point, to learn a little bit about the healthcare, nursing, look at other aspects of healthcare, because so much of healthcare has been really female dominated. That's not the way it is. I just saw something, 25% now of nurses are males. But so the Candy Stripers did that. That now has changed, and again, that includes young gentlemen also. We just had a couple of weeks ago Volunteer Week, where the auxiliary was recognized. They have about 100 auxilians. We have about 90 teenage volunteers who together contributed over 25,000 hours of their time in 2016. For those of you that do use the coffee shop, any tips that are left there go to support teenage volunteer scholarships. 3 gentlemen, it just so happens they're all young men, received awards this year, and they're always very, very good students, have great GPAs, and have great aspirations. So one of them was looking to go into pre-med. One was looking to go into a clinical lab, and that was from their experience as a teenage volunteer at the hospital. Let me see. Oh, I did an extra page here. Yeah, we started our $1 million campaign, the first of its kind, back in 1956. This was to expand and modernize the hospital. That after several years of fundraising, it opened in 1962. So this was the area that is right in the center there. This increased the number of beds up to 170, and also right now the hospital was known as Cortland Memorial Hospital to reflect the community's generous support. As we sort of titled this, I took the title from Lisa Court when she was the director of the foundation, as the hospital the community built, because it has been throughout the very beginning and continues today to be generously supported with gifts from community members. A lot of changes, of course, since that central unit went up. This shows new imaging modalities that became available in X-ray in the 70s. Nuclear medicine was one of the first, which continues. Today, we offer a full spectrum of imaging services, including CT scans. We have a new MRI, state-of-the-art, that just opened up that I think Bonnie will talk about a little bit more when we talk about recent updates. The foundation just funded 2 mobile digital imaging units. We had mobile imaging units before, but they were not digital. This is a very state-of-the-art. They can look at the film right there on the machine. They don't have to go back down to the department to look at it, to go back up and bother the patient, because it may have to retake it. So there's always new additions that are being done here. A lot of times some people think if they go to a larger hospital in a city that they'll get newer machines, and that's not really true. We can be just as state-of-the-art as they are, and probably more so. Several years ago, Hospital Aid purchased Noel, who is a birthing simulator. They used it for training on I think it might have even been like a monthly basis or so often. They would, with the doctors and the staff, go through a birthing scenario, one that might have been a difficult birth that they weren't expecting. We showcased that at the business showcase, and just the week before the business showcase, there was an article in the Sunday paper that Syracuse Hospital had ordered its first birthing simulator, and we had already had ours for a year. So just want to impress upon you that just because we're small doesn't mean we're behind at all, okay? Then in 1978, we added the South Wing. This campaign was known as the Update 76 campaign. It was completed adding 2 33-bed med-surg units, an ICU, pediatrics unit, new emergency, laboratory, and radiology departments. The new surgical suite and extensive renovation to the rest of the building was also included. And through this one, part of the funding came from the Update 76 campaign, raising $1.9 million towards that. So because of that and the changes in some tax laws, the foundation was started in 1978. This is my baby, so a little partial to it. We are the fundraising arm. All the monies that we raise stay here, are used today for the hospital or invested for the future use of the hospital. They don't go to any other organization at this time. Our mission is really to build relationships through philanthropy, stewardship, and education to promote the hospital and its mission. And so that's where we are.
Oops.
We'll be celebrating 40 years then next year. Yeah. 1993, this is where the CMH celebrated the brand new opening of the 80-bed residential nursing facility. We did raise just close to $1 million to help with this funding also, if I remember correctly. The project also included renovation to some spaces in the cafeteria, the coffee shop, and cardiology that affected part of this. Cardiac rehab is in this area. There is an assembly room where community events are held, and some healthcare organizations will have various board meetings and things there. It is 80 bed. There are 2 respite beds for if someone, a caregiver, needs some relief or a family needs some relief. So we also have short-term rehab there, which is used quite a bit, and we've expanded the number of beds,
Slots
I think.
for that, yeah.
Slots for that, yeah. So. Okay, and that's where Anna Hilton got real upset. So,
So is that what you got next one?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So, thanks to Bud Ames, in 2001, 2002, we did the Coming Together Capital campaign where we had a goal to raise $3 million, and we raised 3.45. This campaign was to assist with expanding the emergency room and also to establish a capital equipment endowment with the foundation for future purchases of equipment and possible renovations. So that is part of our portfolio. This new emergency department is now too small. There's always needs there for some additional rooms. So anyways, that was our last capital campaign. Again, thanks to Bud who spearheaded that. Then in 2006, the hospital's name changed to Cortland Regional Medical Center to more accurately reflect our services and the expansion of our services out in the community, not just at one location at the campus. That I think Bonnie will talk about some of those other things also.
Absolutely.
And it's to meet the needs here. So, and then we get to the present time. So,
So may I take over?
your takeover.
All right. So obviously throughout that history, there's been a lot of changes in healthcare, a lot of modernization, a lot of new technology and things like that. But one of the bigger things that's happening at this time is a shift away from everything being in a hospital and more into outpatient type clinics, as Deb was saying. So we really started to invest in that model of care and started to grow our outpatient offerings as well as our specialties here in the community. So we started this new organization called the Regional Medical Practice, or Cortland Regional Medical Practice, as essentially our employed physician group. And what you may not realize is that doctors today, fewer and fewer of them really want to be independent because of the cost and the red tape and all the legalities and other regulatory stuff that goes along with that. They'd much rather just practice medicine, so more and more physicians are giving up their practices and coming to work for hospitals like ours or organizations, medical centers like ours for that reason. So as Deb said earlier, we no longer have an actual school of nursing at the hospital. We do have a ton of graduate nurses who are on site at any given time. We have quite a few, and I think as of last year, we welcomed 13 new graduate nurses, so we're very much a training ground for young nurses in and around our community. And they joined 11 graduate nurses from the previous year. So we see that as part of our legacy, really, in carrying healthcare forward by providing a training area and opportunities for students like that. As Deb mentioned also, Mark joined us in 2014, and Mark came with a really sort of lofty goal to really kind of change the face of our hospital, the reputation of our hospital, to really try and regain some ground perhaps lost to some of our competition in the market. And some of you certainly are aware there's Cuga Medical right here in the community, and they bring other things to the table, which some of that sort of encroachment kind of took place during the last few years of the previous administration, and Mark really wanted to strengthen and bring us back to a place where we could all be really proud, not just of what we do for our community, but as a healthcare partner to our community. And he's, since he came, he's put a lot of money back into the hospital, and that is really reflected in the increase in services, which I'm going to talk about in just a second. One of our newer offerings, some of you may have had an opportunity to utilize, is our new wound care center, which was opened in the summer of 2015. It is offering state-of-the-art modalities for folks who have chronic wounds that do not heal. Hyperbaric wound therapy being among them, which is really high-tech and very effective for those who are able to qualify for it. Since we opened in 2015, the Wound Care Center has welcomed over 330 new patients. And we're drawing them not just from Cortland, but we're drawing them from much beyond Cortland, actually, all the way into Binghamton sometimes, all the way into Ithaca. Folks are traveling to our Wound Care Center, even though there are other wound care centers perhaps closer to them. They're getting great care right here in Cortland. Shortly after that, or right around that same time, we opened a new 3-room endoscopy suite. And although colonoscopies are probably not everyone's favorite topic, they're really, really important. And there's a very high need for them in every community, but especially we did not really have the facilities to support that until we set up this new clinic. And last fall, we actually hired 2 gastroenterologists to help support the need that we have here in our community as well. So Dr. Moskowitz and Dr. Lee joined our team, and they have been busy, very busy ever since they got here. And so that, once again, reflects some of the pent-up need that existed in the community before we had these facilities and these tools. The foundation helped support that. They gave $1.2 million to assist with the construction of the endoscopy suite, and another $500,000 from the endowment for the diagnostic technology that goes along with it. And we're actually looking to expand yet again because we have had so much traffic through our endoscopy suite.
Yeah. We couldn't keep up with the necessary appointments that people needed, and the doctors were complaining. By the time I talk a patient into having a colonoscopy done, you can't have them wait several months to get in because they'll change their mind.
Several times.
So it was our own doctors that were requesting because we only had the one room.
Right. And as I said, our regional medical practice continues to grow. We have Jennifer Turk, who's one of our colleagues in particular, has played a huge role in recruiting new physicians to our community, many of whom are incredibly gifted, talented people who could choose to go anywhere, but they've chosen to be here in Cortland. And this number is actually, it's pretty big, but it's nothing compared to sort of the aggregate. All in, we have hired 43 new physicians and advanced practitioners in 17 specialties over the last 3 to 4 years, which is pretty staggering when you think about the size of our community and the resources that you have here. As someone who's new to the hospital, I joined the hospital a year ago in January. I am seriously impressed by this. As Deb said, you don't have to go to Syracuse or some other big city to get this kind of support, and we continue to add new physicians as well. We're not done. We're not done.
And after personally using it for the family and things, they're very good.
And then we have really been very blessed to be recognized for a lot of the improvements and enhancements, and frankly the commitment we've made to quality and patient care at Cortland Regional. In 2015, we were ranked #1 in New York State and 50th in the country for the quality of care that we give based on the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services value-based purchasing program. We have since been ranked again as of last year. We were ranked in the top 10 of hospitals and in the top 10% in the country. So once again, we should all be really proud of the hospital we have here in our community and the care that we give. People think you can't do that in a little community hospital, but in fact we can, and we do it every day. And these rankings are based on 4 key areas for those who don't want more detail. It's risk-adjusted mortality, patient safety, outcomes, patient satisfaction, clinical processes of care, and overall efficiency. So the government is pushing us to do more with less, to do it cheaper, better, and higher quality, and they're pushing that at every level. So we're all in on that as well, and continue to get recognized for our efforts. Oops, I just went up and I went down. We have a very busy maternity service at the hospital. I think birth about 400 babies a year, and we were recently recognized as a Center of Distinction by Blue Cross Blue Shield, which once again is just underscoring the quality of care that we give, the quality that new moms receive, and something for us to again be proud of as an organization. We received a 4-star ranking for our residential care facility also in 2016. So again, more kudos for us, which we're really super pleased with. This is just a couple of our newer physicians. They're not really new anymore. They started in the spring of 2016, but we've been growing our family and internal medicine practices, so our primary care resources in the community. We knew there would be some retirements, some folks leaving the community, and so we've looked to invest in that area so that folks have the care that they need, which primary care is really the foundation of everything when it comes to healthcare today. So we added Dr. Zabo and Jess Bergeron to our team last spring. We also have several other folks who are in those services who are tremendous and are taking new patients. I'm going to skip ahead to our 125th anniversary was last year. So in April was our official anniversary date, but we celebrated all year long. And in the summer, we had a celebration on the green space adjacent to the hospital where we had some local music, we had old-time carnival games, we had antique fire trucks and vehicles, and it was really a terrific opportunity for us to just kind of have a big block party and invite the community to join us and celebrate our birthday with us. And so we had a great time. Mark really, I think, was very pleased with how it turned out, except for the rotten weather at the tail end that kind of drove us in.
It just poured.
Yeah, we were sitting under tents and a little terrified about the wind and the thunderstorms that were coming our way, and we got out of there in a hurry. I just mentioned Dr. Moskowitz and Dr. Lee, so once again, they're some of our newer physicians. They're doing a great job in supporting our community on the GI front. We also have added several other doctors recently. Dr. Kopenko is our chief of our oncology department now. He is tremendous and has just joined us. Dr. Saliba joined our general surgery group, and Dr. Potlery just joined us for OBGYN. One person who's not pictured here is also Dr. Roger Levine, who is our inpatient psychiatrist. So, more talent, more docs, more support for Cortland and the surrounding communities. Deb mentioned the new MRI. We're really excited to have this. This is the best machine, bar none, in the vicinity. I don't think Syracuse can touch this in terms of its quality, the picture that it provides, and the accuracy. It's phenomenal. In fact, the gentleman who runs this machine talks about it as if it's a Lamborghini. It is that sophisticated, that sexy a machine. They really are. We're really lucky to have this. So, once again, huge investment on the part of the hospital. This is over $1 million machine, right? Right. So,
I think it's going closer to 2.
You're right. It's $2 million machine.
Yeah.
So,
Plus it's more open. Sometimes they've been very,
Right.
very closed. So, so if anyone has issues with a closed situation. This is a more open
Yeah, you can see that.
board.
It's a shorter.
And it's great because there's lights and pictures on the ceiling to keep you.
Whatever music you want.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
okay, so,
And just get it done.
that's all you know.
It's about as
Up
relaxing
close.
as you're gonna get, right, while you're in something
Yeah.
like that, right?
Mhm.
So, and then really, I think we're coming to the end here. There's more on the horizon. We're not, we plan to be in this community. We've been in this community 125 plus years. We plan to be here for the foreseeable future. In the summer, we'll be moving our hematology and oncology department, co-locating everything that right now is split between the hospital and an off-site location over on West Road into the hospital on the main floor in what was formerly our outpatient rehab area. So if anyone's familiar with the main lobby, it's right around the corner from the main lobby, but we're relocating everything into that area over the coming months. So we hope to be opening that in the late summer, early fall. We are adding our urologist to our team later this summer as well. Dr. Chihab comes to us from upstate. We'll actually be sharing him with upstate, and he will be joining us in August. And I'm sure some of you have heard as well that the hospital is in the process of negotiating an affiliation, and that is something that we're all very excited about, also apprehensive about, as I'm sure you can imagine. Big changes on the horizon that at this point, not a lot to share other than we've had very strong interest in the hospital. There's been very strong Marks is very pleased with the quality and the quantity of the proposals that came our way in terms of partnership, and they're in the process right now of evaluating those potential partnerships. So by the end of the summer, early fall, we hope to be in a position to announce who our new partner will be, and that will be an active parent type situation where we're a corporate partnership with another healthcare group. So it will not change the fact that we'll have a hospital here in Portland. It may bring more resources to our community, and that's certainly what we're looking for. More investment in Portland in services that we need here in our, for the folks who live here, not to see things migrate away from Portland. So there's a special task force that is dedicated to that particular effort, and they have been engaged in dialogue for well over a year about how that is going to how that's going to look and what we ideally want out of that negotiation. So it's a very exciting time for the hospital. I think that comes to the end. Yes, ma'am. So I hope we've shared some things maybe that you wanted to learn more about today. Maybe shared some things you didn't know about the hospital today. Deb and I'd be happy to answer any questions, or we'll do our best anyway.
We will do it.
So.
Where was the nurse's residence when?
The nurse's residence was located on West Main Street. So it was where right now the ER parking lot is.
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's where it was at that time. And that got torn down, well,
The one picture showed it.
was
Yeah,
it there,
did-
still there in the
Yeah.
Central Pavilion one?
Yeah.
Was it still there in that
Yeah.
that shop? Yeah.
Way back.
Way back.
Way back.
We're working way back.
Yeah.
Way back machines.
Way back.
I was talking to somebody, and I don't know where, that had gone to nursing school there.
Mhm.
Here,
Right there.
right here.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Building right in the middle.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
And they had dorms there they lived in.
Yes,
There.
yes.
And that's the same entrance then, isn't it? I mean, the same post that they had for whoever it was.
Right.
Yeah.
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 Uh-huh. So when was that changed?
Well, this is so, let me see if I can figure this out. So this is the original hospital right here. Okay, and that brick is still there.
It is.
You know? And then this was the central pavilion that was added on. So this here was the nursing home?
That's the
The
nursing.
nurses' home.
Nurse's residence.
Nurses' residence. And then I think these were houses. So this probably came down, it had to come down before update 1976, because then in 1978, that's when this south wing here
It's connected.
was connected to the hospital that's parallel to West Main Street. And then in 93, when they added the nursing home, that's here in this green space, what was the front lawn.
And the men's ward and the women's ward were on right either side of the door there.
Yeah, yeah, I don't quite remember that.
Yeah.
I do.
Although, for the 3 years that I worked here as a nurse on 1E, this is the same part that's still right there, and that's where the mental health unit is now.
Right.
And at that point, you could still come out, it wasn't an entrance to the hospital, but the patients could come out onto the porch. So that was between 75 and 78.
I remember in '53, I was worried about what door I was going to go in to have the baby. Because I know that I went in that door to visit people in the...
She was looking for the men's door.
So, and then of course, and then here, now, this is part here where the medical office building is. So that medical office building went up in the 80s. And that was to help attract some new physicians, to give them some office space, or at least to get them started, and then as their practice grew, they'd go out and purchase their own office. So that's where that is.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's true.
I just came in, maybe there's other people who remember, I'm probably dating myself with some of you ladies that also
Oh,
dating.
I already did that. So
How about-
you're second.
How about working in the kitchen in 57, 8, and 9? With Gert Clouston.
Yeah, no, that's too much before me, but I bet, our food and nutrition staff does a terrific job
Yes, they do.
of getting the food out, and I mean, and the residents and the patients. It's very tough. It continues today, I think.
We used to
be that.
record in there at 5:30 in the morning on Saturday morning. It was a long walk from Cedar Street to the hospital in the snow.
In the snow.
My first job.
Do you have a midwifery practice?
We do. We do actually, yes. Mary Bora is our midwife on our practice, and we did have a couple of others who have since left the practice.
So you just have one
We
midwife?
just have one who's employed by us currently, yes.
Yeah, and they're located at 130, is that 139 North Main Street? So it's right next to the dental office,
Yeah.
Dr. Sproul's old office, the
Corner
blue
of
house.
Yeah.
Miller Street.
Oh,
Yeah,
they
the
took
blue
over
house.
the stone, gray
So is that
stone
just a
house.
midwife that's hired by you, or has there been some influence on policy and changes in options for delivery because of midwifery, or is that pretty much still just an assistant to the OBGYN?
Absolutely not just an
No.
assistant. These are women are certified nurse midwives.
Yeah.
They are allowed to do deliveries unassisted,
Uh-huh.
and they are really being hired as an option so that women have the choice.
You don't have a separate center for them
We
to
do.
practice in?
We do not have. They work in our maternity department, same as the other OBs in the community. So they access all the same tools and everything. But they were added really. Midwifery was added really as a response to community desire and need for other options. Not everyone wants to have an OB delivery. So yeah.
Any talk about going into, I know St. Joe's, the birthing,
The birthing center.
the birthing place is on the site, but there's definitely different practices within that. Any?
Not a
Any
whole
active-
lot. Not a whole lot. I mean, I've certainly not heard anything about investing in something of that magnitude. For those who don't realize it, maternity is actually not a moneymaker for hospitals. It's a money losing program for hospitals. We do it because it's important and we need to support moms, but hospitals do not make money on maternity. So making those kinds of investments take big dollars and big commitments, and we're not in a position to make those kind of commitments right now.
Yeah, thank you.
In regard to our ER, how many beds do we have and how many beds do you want to have?
What do we have in the
Oh,
area?
you know how many. What is there? 14?
14, I think.
Traditionally, we always ask questions we know the answer.
So
Yeah.
there are 14. I don't know. I don't think it has really ever been discussed as to what needs to be added to it.
And we have 4 in the hallway as emergency beds or whatever.
Right.
Exactly, yeah.
And 2 waiting chairs.
Yeah, we unfortunately sometimes, the emergency room is an area that you never know what's gonna happen. So there could be no one there, although that probably doesn't happen too often, or you can be filled to the gills.
Right.
And-
On Tuesdays, I'm surprised how busy we are.
Right.
This is Tuesday in Cortland afternoon,
Mhm.
and
Right.
to be almost full to the gills is
Right.
amazing. I mean, I
Right.
figured Friday night, but Tuesday afternoon in Cortland and we're full to the gills.
Mhm.
So I wondered what the plans were for
Yeah.
elbow room.
Yeah, at this point, I have not heard of any kind of expansion. It's only been noted that, we're full a lot.
Right. I think, what I could say sort of generally speaking is, given our status right now in negotiations for affiliation, capital investment of that size and magnitude would be something that would, eventually just be discussed with any future partner, but we're not in a position to make those kind of moves on
At
our
this
own
point.
right now. But where the ER is concerned, that's something we didn't touch on. The ER has actually been part of a major project at the hospital to
yes.
lower the time, the door to doctor time and the door to discharge time for patients who come in through the ER. And they have made huge strides in that. We're down to.
So last I heard it was like 109 minutes from door to discharge,
Mhm.
where it had been closer to 3 hours.
Right,
And door to doctor
15 minutes.
is 15 minutes or less.
So, if you do go, you're getting seen
Yeah,
pretty
we've
quickly.
made really good progress there. Worked
Yeah.
really hard to get there. It's quite a team down there, I'll tell you.
It is,
Mhm.
it
It's
is.
quite a team.
Not more than 3 months ago, I felt at the time it was kind of sad taking somebody to the emergency room where they didn't have beds. Inquiry was made locally, no bed in Ithaca, no bed in Syracuse, we can offer you Robert Packer in Sarah, Pennsylvania. Now that's a nice trip for people to take their family, see their family, do their family.
Right,
So we ended up in Binghamton.
Mhm.
No beds in Cortland.
I'm just curious, do you still have a sterile supply department and autoclaves? And if so, where is it located and what updates have you made since the 60s?
Goodness, I don't know the
Yes,
answer to that.
yes, we still do. So it's now called central processing, I believe.
Okay.
It's overseen by the director of the operating room suite. It's located down in the basement.
Still there then?
Still in the basement, yeah.
I was
That's
there in the
yeah.
60s, and that was one of my jobs to run the autoclave, and Judy was also.
Would be bringing stuff down from the OR.
Louise Heffron, and Elaine Adner, Louise, and she was amazing.
Yeah.
She was in charge of that, so you still do have that department? Do you know of any upgrades? I'm sure the
That, I'll be honest with you, I don't know about. I'm sure whatever sterilization processes have to be done, I'm sure are being met, but I don't have any specifics.
I was there when they phased out the large central sterile operation because of modernization. That between paying the help and the benefits, it was cost prohibitive, and so they buy wrapped sterile equipment from other
Mhm.
facilities.
There-
who
there
distribute
are-
wrapped sterile equipment.
Yeah, there probably are, in today's healthcare, some purchased, prepared trays.
Most of the trays are prepared, the grocers, they have to make their own
But,
trays with the sterilized equipment.
yeah.
It's not so anymore, unless it's a special, let's say a surgeon who
Right,
does special
right.
surgery and has his own special equipment. So therefore, the OR girls would have, subject to sterilizing equipment in that area.
I'm just curious, so when you mentioned that you went from 3 hours to
Less than 2?
less than 2, that took some kind of team innovation,
Yeah, that's
and
it.
that's what I'm interested in most. So do you have any, like a little synopsis of like what that process was about, the
That
behind the
was,
scenes?
sure, it's actually part, it's called a lean process. So if you've heard lean methodology is used in manufacturing.
Right.
It's really all about mapping an entire process flow
Yeah.
and then finding the places in that process flow where you're bottlenecking, you're creating issues or getting in your own way, and smoothing those out along, as is necessary in order to make those improvements, taking out unnecessary steps, taking out unnecessary, people.
Multiple departments
You know,
have input
Diversity.
in it. Something as simple as I remember, from coming into the ER to being admitted to a patient, there was like 3 different wristbands.
mhm.
Something as simple as just, going down to one wristband that would work for everybody.
Right.
But yes, so it is a little over a year ago, Peg Perry was hired as our lean coordinator.
Mhm.
So this first project in the ER, some consultants were involved in that.
Right.
And now Peg's
It's pretty
overseeing that.
interesting.
It is, and it's actually, that's something that we're rolling into other avenues at the hospital. That now that same sort of philosophy is being applied to our OR
Oh.
management, and that is another area where we know we can do better. So same kind of ideas happening. Going back to the ER for a second, I believe I remember them saying something like 120 steps were involved in a person's potential trajectory from the front door to going home, and only 5 or 6 of those steps were really patient-facing, value-added steps from the patient's perspective. And so really, we're looking at ourselves very carefully on those fronts and trying to determine how can we make the experience better for our patients. So,
It's amazing too, which I'm sure you found, how much varied knowledge there is just among the experience of all the people, but it just, when
yes.
you're busy working, it doesn't get tapped into.
Right, right, absolutely.
I think we should mention the MASH camp.
Ah, MASH
Because
camp,
my son
okay.
participated and had a great time.
Sure. I don't know too much.
Everyone may not know about that.
Sure, MASH Camp is something we do every summer, and Jared Kolajajek, who is the volunteer coordinator, coordinates that with local students. I honestly don't know how they get invited to it.
I think, is it a grant through the Seven Valleys Health Coalition?
No.
Is it
It
a-
was CNY, what was it?
Some,
It has an
professionals.
interesting acronym, I
Yeah,
can't remember what it is.
right.
It's healthcare
HEC
professional.
or something?
HEC, that's right. Whatever,
Okay.
I don't know what it stands for, but you're right,
Yes.
HEC.
And he had to submit some kind of, well, he had to do an application, but then he had to submit some kind of a letter
Okay.
expressing interest.
And it's mainly for 8th graders, 9th graders?
Gentleman this morning told me his 13-year-old son is interested because
I
he's
think
trying to
it's
figure mom and dad out, and they're both nurses.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
He's gonna
So
get
they bring them
involved.
on site for 2 days. They give them a scrub outfit that they get to wear. They go to different departments. They play operation
Yes, he loves
uh,
sisters.
to learn some of those things.
There's usually
And a couple of times, I know they've had the emergency flight helicopter come.
simulated.
They
Yeah.
had to simulate an accident, he had a
Mhm.
bus accident,
Right.
they had to, evaluate patients and so on
Right.
and so forth, so it was a lot of fun.
So it's always a great opportunity for young students to see what's going on, as is the Teenage Volunteer Program, because they can get a lot of exposure to some different areas there. So. Okay.
Well, thank you all very much.
I did bring a few folders, if you want to take one. It does have a copy of the physician gallery, which is along the hallway from the ER entrance in. It is the original one, where our second version is up now. And of course, the third version needs to be done, but we have not done that yet. That's in there. Last year, Bonnie had prepared a one-sheet historical timeline of the hospital's 125th anniversary. And on the other side, I talked about the over 125 years of philanthropy that the community has done to support the hospital. That's there, and also a listing of our regional medical practice physicians in the different specialties and their contact information. So I just brought a few, so if you can share
Please
and
help yourselves.
help yourself and take that with you.